If you had to choose a Fortnite season to live in, which one would you pick? Today we're diving into every single Fortnite season to figure out which ones are actually survivable. From disastrous events to evil villains taking over, we're ranking each season on a tier list to decide at the end of the video the best season to live in Fortnite. Starting off with Fortnite Wrecked. This was the season with all of the cars, and it was pretty chaotic. This one is honestly pretty difficult. We did have the threat of Megalodon, and he was trying to refuel his ship to destroy the whole island, but instead, Dr. Doom actually took over, and there was a massive nuke on the island, so I'll say I'll probably die. Next up, we have Fortnite Chapter 1 Season 6. This was the season when the cube took over, and the whole middle of Loot Lake was lifted up. The cube ended up actually exploding, and we were sent into some sort of like weird reality, so I'm gonna say I would be in danger for this one. I don't know if I would actually die, but I'll be in a lot of trouble. Next up, Chapter 2 Season 4. This was the season when all the Marvel heroes took over and Galactus was on his way. He actually managed to rip out the 0 point. This was definitely really dangerous, but I think I'll probably die. Chapter 2 Season 2. This is an interesting one. This was the Midas season, and there were different spots on the map taken over by like Ghost or Shadow. There was like a war going on between the two factions. There's also the Doomsday device and the massive tsunami, so I would say this would be very dangerous. Next up, the recent Absolute Doom season. We had Dr. Doom on the map, but even though he was one of the biggest villains and threats of all time, he actually made a pretty good society. There were like safe areas on the map, all of the cities were really safe. He even had like ice cream stores. I feel like it was a very controlled season. Even though Doom is a pretty bad guy, I feel like it was actually pretty safe to live in. So I would say I'll be fine in this one. Chapter 4 Season 3. This was the season with the jungle in the middle. The whole center of the island cracked open, revealing some sort of ancient jungle area. Dr. Sloan came back. I don't think there was actually any big bad guys in this season. It was actually pretty cool. You could ride raptors, you could get muddy, there were vines you could grind on, and if you avoided the jungle area completely, I would say you would be fine. So I would say this is actually a pretty livable season, so I'm going to put this in I would survive. Chapter 4 Season 1, one of my favorite seasons of all time. There were some really awesome places to live on the map, and I would say it's pretty survivable, apart from the Oathbound. We had a snapshot of Geno overtaking the island, and they built this rift gate, but even though all of that was happening, if you just avoided that whole area, I believe you would be fine. So I'm going to put it in I would survive. Chapter 2 Season 8. This was the season of all of the pirates. There were dig sites all across the map. The vault opened up, but I would say this season was not safe at all, because at the end of the season, a massive volcano erupted, destroying all of the major locations, like Retail Row and Tilted Towers. But if you weren't at those locations, then you should be fine, but I'm going to say this was a very dangerous time to live in. Next up, Chapter 2 Season 1. Nothing really happened in this season. We actually had some cool updates though. We had the Alter Ego War, but nothing really happened with that. We also had the Storm King take over the center of the island, but overall I think this was actually a pretty safe season to live in. So I'm going to put it in I would survive. Chapter 5 Season 1. This was when the society was controlling the whole island and they kidnapped Peely. I mean, there was stuff going on behind the scenes, but I'd say I'll be fine in this one. Chapter 4 Season OG. This is the season when we traveled back in time and we experienced all of Chapter 1 again in different ways, which led up to the black hole event happening again and the Big Bang. So if I just sat back and everything happened, I'd say I'll be fine. Chapter 2 Season 7. This season was not safe at all. This was when all of the aliens took over, the massive mothership in the sky. You'd be abducted and there were aliens all over the map. Even though we had Dr. Sloan working on our side, she actually betrayed us at the end of the season and left us to die in the mothership. So yeah, I would definitely die in this season. This is not livable at all. Chapter 1 Season 9. This season was the futuristic season, where Tilted Towers was rebuilt into Neo Tilted and Retail Row into Mega Mall. This actually could be a pretty nice time to live in if it wasn't for the monster. We had a monster attacking the island and a mech was built to fight it. So even though most of the season was pretty chill, but because of that, I'm going to put it in I would be in danger. Now we have Chapter 1 Season 4. This was after the meteor struck, and there was like a movie being made on the island with green screens everywhere and fake supervillains and superheroes. But we also had the Visitor, who was this mysterious character who came out of the meteor and actually built a rocket and launched off. But that didn't really affect anyone. I would say I would survive in this season. Chapter 1 Season 7. This was most people's favorite season of all time, especially Christmas themed season. We had the massive iceberg hit the map, which would not be a very good place to live in because that would be super cold. We had the Ice King. There was lots of secret villain things inside of his castle, like the eggs which could have hatched, the Infinity Blade, and the Prisoner. But none of those things come close to the Ice King covering the entire island in a blizzard ice storm. Yeah, I would not be surviving that. I'm putting that in I would die. Chapter 2 Remix, the current season. Is it livable though? I mean, the only thing different is that instead of the war going on, we have rappers taking over. Instead of the agency, we got the Dog Pound, and instead of the grotto, we got the Spaghetti Grotto. I feel like there's definitely a lot of nice places to live in Chapter 2, and this seems like a pretty pretty chill season. We haven't really got any villains going on, so I'll say this is very livable and I'll survive. Chapter 2, Season 6, the Primal Season. This was when the island grew wild and we had crafting and all those primal weapons. The only threat we had in this season was the character Raz, who was obsessed with learning all about the Spire. He actually became a pretty insane boss to fight, and with the lack of natural resources, I would say I would struggle in this season. I could survive, but it would definitely be very hard. Chapter 3, Season 4, the Chrome Season. Now this season, if you guys remember, the Chrome took over the entire island and the Herald actually imploded it all, and I think everyone died, so yeah, I would definitely not survive this. Rip Loot Station. Chapter 2, Season 3, the Aftermath of the Doomsday Device. The whole island got flooded, but no sweat insurance came in and saved a bunch of the locations. There were no threats at all in this season, so if you were saved by no sweat insurance or lived in one of those buildings, you'd be completely fine, so I would say I'll be fine. Chapter 1, Season 5, Worlds Collide. This was when a bunch of locations were rifted into the map, like Paradise Palms and the whole desert biome, but we also had the cube spawning in and rolling around the map, which would actually kill people if you shot it or got crushed by it. It eventually sunk into Loot Lake, but this was definitely a very dangerous season to live in. I don't know if I would die, but I'll definitely be in a lot of danger. Chapter 5, Season 2, Myths and Mortals. This was the season when all of the Greek gods took over after Pandora's box was opened. I remember Zeus actually wanted all of the mortals to die. Luckily he didn't succeed, but this was definitely a very dangerous season to live in. You wouldn't want to live in this season and you probably wouldn't survive, so I'm probably going to put it at the front of I would be in danger. Chapter 3, Season 1. Most of the first seasons of the chapter are normally very livable, but for this season we were all preparing for a war against the Imagined Order as they were drilling up through the island, causing earthquakes and buildings to collapse. The island also just flipped and we were recovering from that, so I would say this was a pretty dangerous season to be in, considering all of the wars that were about to happen. So I'm going to put in I would be in danger. Chapter 3, Season 3, Vibin. This was one of the seasons I was looking forward to ranking, because this season was super chill. This was after the war with the Imagined Order. The Imagined Order were defeated, everyone was celebrating, there were roller coasters on the map, rave caves. Would have been such a cool time to live in. The only problem in this season was that the 0 Point was crying for help and no one knew why, and it was because we were actually being watched by the next villain, the Herald. The Herald didn't take over until the next season, so I would say I would survive and this would be a super fun season to live in. Fortnite Chapter 4, Season 2. This was when Mega City was added. That would be a sick place to live. But then again, all of the buildings were like pretty much empty, and there was a bunch of wars going on from the last reality and all those factions, like the River Guard and the Fox Clan. Mega City was definitely a super dangerous place to live in, but if you avoided it, I think you would be fine, so I'm going to put it in I'll be fine. Chapter 1, Season 2, one of the first seasons in Fortnite. Nothing really happened at the first few stages. This was when Tilted Towers and Junk Junction and all those other POIs were added, but yeah, there was no threats in this season, like at all, so I'm going to say this would be survivable and I'll definitely live here. Chapter 1, Season X. So much happened in this season. The 0 Point was destabilizing, time was going crazy, and a bunch of old POIs were rifting into the map, resulting in the black hole. This season was definitely not safe. I wouldn't say I would die until the black hole, but I would definitely be in a lot of danger with all those rift beacons and locations being rifted in and out. So let's go ahead and put that there. Chapter 1, Season 1, the very first season. Again, nothing really happened in the first few seasons of Fortnite, but if you really want to count the loop and being able to eliminate each other, that was definitely not safe, but then all these rankings would be different. We're basing it on the map and the threats at the time. There weren't really many locations on the map though. Most of them were added the next season in Chapter 1, Season 2. So I'm going to put in I would survive. Chapter 4, Season 4, The Last Resort. This was when Kato Thorn took over the map. There's a bunch of new POIs, which are like hotels and suites and stuff. It would have been super cool to live if it wasn't for a time-traveling vampire to be in control of everything. I don't think we knew what this guy's plan was. He was just collecting artifacts, but he definitely had to go. And we did end up defeating him. But of all the heists going on, I would say this was a very dangerous season to live in. But I'm going to put it in I would struggle. Chapter 1, Season 3. This was the first season when things started getting crazy. Everything seemed normal at first, but then when people looked up into the sky, they saw a massive meteor coming down, and people didn't know where it was going to hit. This was a very dangerous season to live in. I would not want to live here. Just going at the front of I would be in danger. Chapter 2, Season 8. Now this was probably the most dangerous season of all time, with the cubes roaming around everywhere, the last reality and alien invasions everywhere on the map, and the Imagined Order. Yeah, there's no hesitation, I would die. Chapter 3, Season 2, Resistance. This was the peak of the war between the Seven and the Imagined Order. We did end up defeating the Imagined Order, but lots of sacrifices were made. I wouldn't like to live in this season at all, so I'm going to put it in I would be in danger. I don't know if I would quite die, but the danger is crazy. Finally, Chapter 2, Season 5, 0 points. This was the season when Agent Jonesy was recruiting a bunch of bounty hunters into the map. We had people like the Predator, Master Chief, the T-800 and Sarah Connor, the Mandalorian. Yeah, you will not be surviving this season. It would be impossible to fight those guys. So I'm going to put it in, I would die. So that was all the seasons, but which one would be the best season to live in out of these ones? Even though Chapter 4, Season 1 would be a really nice place to live, there was a threat going on, which was the Snapshot Geno doing stuff with the Rift Gate and crap. It was definitely not safe, so I'm actually going to get rid of that from here and put it in, I would be in danger. For vibing, even though this was a really good season as well with the roller coaster, there was a threat watching us from the darkness. Definitely dangerous, so I'm going to put that in, I would be in danger. Chapter 2 Remix, even though this is the season we're in right now and it seems pretty chill, we don't know what could happen next, so I'm going to put that in, I would be in danger as well, because we don't know what's going to happen. For Chapter 1 Season 4, this wasn't exactly perfect either with the visitor in the map and the rocket launch, so I wouldn't say this was the best season to live in or the safest, so I'm also going to put that in, I would be in danger. Now it comes down to these final 4 seasons. I would love to live in Chapter 2, Season 1, but because of the war with Alter vs. Ego and Chaos Agent in the background, this was definitely not safe, so I'm going to put it in, I would be in danger. For the Wild season, this wasn't exactly perfect either, because Dr. Sloan was in the background working on some sort of like artifact, I forgot what it was exactly, and with the massive jungle in the middle, I don't think I could deal with walking through that every day, so I wouldn't want to live here. Now it comes down to Chapter 1, Season 2, and 1. I think I know what I'm going to choose. These 2 seasons were perfectly safe and would be fun to live in, but Chapter 1, Season 2 had more POIs added, so I'd like to live there. Sorry, Season 1. So I think Chapter 1 Season 2 is the most livable season because of all the locations on the map you could live at. There were no threats, there were no enemies, nothing bad was happening that could put you in danger. So this is the season I'm going with. Don't forget to like and subscribe and let me know which season you're living in the comments.